everyone, what's up? My name is Joss and welcome back to my channel, Squibbles Reads. So as some of you guys know, I took a hiatus off of BookTube for 5 months due to a lot of reasons, but mostly because I was just super busy. I was trying to graduate with my master's degree. I was also trying to simultaneously plan my wedding and work a 40-hour week. So needless to say, I did not have very much time for reading or really anything like sleeping or showering or eating during this period of time in my life. But just because I stopped reading and making videos for 5 months does not necessarily mean that I stopped purchasing books. So today I have, this is one box, and this is 2 boxes from Book Outlet full of books to show you guys. These are books that I have accumulated over the past half a year or so from Book Outlet and just never got a chance to haul on my channel. So this might be a little bit of a long one, but grab a snack, grab a beverage, adult or otherwise, and let's jump into the boxes. The first book that I'm going to show you guys was one of my autumn reading recommendations, which was my last video, and I'll link it in the card up there, and that book is Gretel and the Dark by Eliza Granville. This is a story that is kind of magical realism. It's told in 3 storylines. So the first storyline involves 2 kids and they're running with a shadow through the woods trying to escape some like villainous figure. And the second storyline starts in 1899 and we have a psychoanalyst named Joseph Brewer, and he finds a girl named Lily on the street, and Lily insists that she is a machine and not a human. So some strange things happen when he takes Lily in. His house starts to get infested by these black and white butterflies. And then in the third storyline, we jump way forward in time to a time where the Nazis were in control in Germany. And we follow a girl named Krista, and she starts to exhibit some kind of strange behavior. And to, I guess, kind of try and quell these behaviors, her maid starts to tell her these really freaky, dark fairy tales. I really enjoyed this book. It was super magical. It was kind of dark. It involved some psychology elements, which was kind of cool, but not too many. And I liked it so much that I picked it up from Book Outlet. The next book I have not read yet, but I do love Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, and this is Purple Hibiscus. I don't know a ton about this book, but I do know that it is about a 15-year-old girl named Kambili, and her dad is extremely religious and really strict on her. And during this time, Nigeria is in the middle of a military coup, so she and her brother go to stay with a family that has less stringent rules upon them. The next book that I have to show you guys is a book that was recommended to me, and I was gonna tell you from who, but I honestly don't remember. But this is a very bright colored book, and I'm personally not really into bright colors. I really like neutrals. Why am I still talking? This book is called How to Love by Katie Cotugno. So as some of you guys know, my favorite romance trope is like the one that got away trope, and this is kind of the one that got away. So we start following a girl named Rena, and she falls in love with a guy named Sawyer who she thought would never notice her, and then he gets her pregnant and then he leaves. So then we fast forward a few years later, and Rena is taking care of their kid, and Sawyer suddenly reappears in her life. And I think the story is about whether they are able to rekindle their love and whether Rena is able to find forgiveness. The next book is a book that I picked up totally on a whim. I think it's fantasy, I'm not even quite sure, but it was really, really inexpensive, and this is called The Scrivener's Tale by Fiona McIntosh, and I believe that this is about a psychologist, and then another psychologist convinces him to take on a patient, and this patient is a woman, and both the psychologists are men. And then the patient, Fiona, tells the psychologist that takes her on as a patient named Gabe, she tells him that he has to kill her and then flee to a place that's called Morgravia. I have no idea, but I picked it up because it involved psychology and it was really cheap, so. Okay, the next 2 books that I have to show you guys are the first 2 books in a series, and I've read both of these and I really liked both of them. And these are the Cormoran Strike series by Robert Galbraith, aka J.K. Rowling. This is the first book in the series called The Cuckoo's Calling, and then I also have the second book in the series that's called The Silkworm. So the first book, called The Cuckoo's Calling, is about a supermodel named Lula Landry, and she has fallen from her balcony in what is ruled a suicide. But there are some suspicious circumstances around her death, and our detective Cormoran Strike is hired to find out if these suspicious circumstances are indeed the truth. So this one is kind of more a straightforward mystery. It's kind of just like an is this the truth thing. We meet people like rock stars and rappers, and it's kind of like a highfalutin life going on in here, but all in all the mystery and the investigation are pretty straightforward. There are some twists and turns, but. And then the second book, The Silkworm, is definitely more up my alley. I would liken some of the scenes in this book to the TV show Hannibal. Like, it's very kind of showy and a little bit horror-esque and a little bit more gruesome. It's about a writer that goes missing, and then his body is found that's kind of strung up in this really lavish, really creepy, eerie way, and it's a little bit more like eerie and quirky and twisted in, again, like a Hannibal type of way. So between the two, I definitely like this one better, but I did still really enjoy the first one. The next book is a book that I picked up because I heard Mercedes talk about it on her channel, and that book is a pretty little tiny book. It's called The Beautiful Bureaucrat by Helen Phillips. This is about a woman who works at this place called the database, and she just enters like big long strings of numbers into the database, and it seems like a pretty mundane and boring type of job, but day by day as she starts going to her workplace, everything starts to seem more alive, and by everything I mean like her surroundings, the keyboard, stuff like that, and then things just start to get increasingly more and more strange, and then one day her husband goes missing, and then the story kind of unfolds from there. On the blurb, it kind of compares this to Murakami, Kelly Link, and Amy Bender. If you're familiar with the latter two, they write kind of fabulous fiction short stories, so this is apparently in the same vein as them. Okay, so this is the last book in the first box, and this is a book that I have also read. This is called Lock-In by John Scalzi. Every time I ask for sci-fi recommendations on Twitter or anything, someone always recommends me John Scalzi. So this was my first John Scalzi book that I ever read, and I did enjoy it, so I picked it up from Book Outlet. So in this book, there is a disease that is spreading really widely, and it affects everyone and they get sick, but in a very, very small percentage of the population that is infected, they become locked in. And basically when you're locked in, you are fully awake. However, you can't respond, you can't really move, so things are happening to you, but there's nothing that like you can do. There are also these people called Haydens with Hayden syndrome, and then there is a murder mystery, and there are all of these things that explode from there. So I really, really enjoyed this book. It was kind of a quick read, it was a short book, but I enjoyed it. It was one of my first kind of romps into sci-fi, so. Okay, we're moving on to box number 2. So the next book I also read previously. I loved this book. This is The Weight of Feathers by Anna Marie McLemore. It was my first Anna Marie McLemore book, and this is kind of a Romeo and Juliet-esque type of story set in a performing arts setting. So there are two groups, and both of them do different types of performing arts, and they're both traveling acts. The girl's name is Lace, and the boy's name is Cluck, and they are from two different groups, and their groups kind of have this feud with each other. It is really, really beautifully written. I really believed their romance. I thought everything about it was wonderful. I love kind of like circusy performing arts type of books, so this was totally for me. And then this next book I also read, and I really, really enjoyed. Funny story, I read it at the very end of 2015, and I made a mistake and put it in my favorite books of 2016 video, but I really enjoyed it. This is a book that has stuck with me for a long time. This is called Paperweight by Meg Haston. This is about a girl named Stevie, and it basically documents her journey through her treatment at an eating disorder rehab facility. This is a fictional book. I don't know if I said that, but it is totally fictional, and I think that it just really illustrates all the feelings that Stevie was going through while she was there really, really well. Meg Haston herself also works in mental health, so I think that her perspective was really cool to have written from. The next book that I have to show you guys, I have read Station 11 by this author, but I have not read this one yet. This is called Last Night in Montreal by Emily St. John Mandel. This is about a girl that travels from place to place, never really finding like a home that she sticks to for a long time. This started when she was a kid, and it is now perpetuated into her adulthood. She's being haunted by something, and that something is that she cannot really remember much about her childhood. There might be a private investigator after her, she doesn't really know, but she has kind of found roots when she moves to Montreal. My next book I picked up because it was really, really beautiful. I am a sucker for Europa editions because they are really pretty and they have these really beautiful French flaps, and this one is a great shade of teal. This is the shade of my phone, so I really like this color. But this is called Mayumi and the Sea of Happiness by Jennifer Tseng, and I had no idea what it was about when I picked it and put it in my cart. It was only a few dollars, so I figured why not. This is apparently about a 40-year-old woman who is a librarian who begins a relationship with a 17-year-old boy. Apparently, somewhere along the way after they start talking, she also feels guilty and tries to befriend his mother. So I don't really know what's going on in here. I'm not sure if I'll like it, but it's pretty. The next book that I have to show you guys is also really beautiful. This is called Where Women Are Kings by Christy Watson, and there's kind of like a little bit of gold and silver foil going on there. This is about a 7-year-old boy from Elijah, and he is taken from his home where he lived with his birth mother, who is a Nigerian immigrant to England. But after something happens, he is then placed between foster home, and then after another foster home, and then another foster home, and then he finally finds a family that he feels stable with. He is also Nigerian, and the family adopts him as a white family, so this just kind of goes through all the trials and tribulations of the adoption process and how he adjusts And this definitely seems like a book that I would typically really enjoy. So the next book is a book that I read when I was probably at like the very pinnacle of stress during my semester off from BookTube. I remember listening to this book on audiobook every day driving home from school at like 11 p.m. and I was just like, please God, let the semester be over. So I have some not great memories associated with this book, but it was one of my only sources of stress relief during those 5 months. And this book is called The Book of Unknown Americans by Cristina Enriquez. I really enjoyed it when I was listening to it, so I bought the physical copy. This is about a 15-year-old girl named Maribel, and her family has just moved to the US from Mexico. They're experiencing a bunch of new things in the States. Everything is really different, like food, the school culture, the school structure, everything is really different to Maribel. And then after she moves, she meets a boy whose name is Mayor Toro, and he is from Panama, and they kind of form a bond and a relationship, and this book documents both of their struggles being from different countries, but both being seen as outsiders in the US, and I really enjoyed it. I would really recommend it. But again, I am neither from Mexico nor from Panama, so I cannot speak as to how the representation was, but I can only speak to my own personal enjoyment. The next book that I have to show you guys is really large, and it's also like a pretty popular book, and I picked it from the scratch and dent section on Book Outlet. So if you guys aren't familiar, the scratch and dent section is books that are like very clearly damaged. So in this case, this one is missing the dust jacket, sometimes the corners are bent, sometimes there's like price tags on the front that they can't really remove the glue from, but yeah, so I'll stop blabbing. This is The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt. Clearly it's not very aesthetic because it's literally just like a nude book going on here, but I don't know too much about this book, just that it is really heavy in its hardcover form. Cool, so this is, all I know is that it's about kind of like a 13-year-old boy, and he gets in an accident and he survives, and then he's taken in by someone else and it involves some type of art. I don't really know, but I still haven't read any Donna Tartt, and that needs to be changed. The next book that I have to show you guys, I probably should have included in my autumn reading recommendations video. Even though I haven't read it, it definitely seems like something that I would really enjoy in autumn. This is called The Library at Mount Char by Scott Hawkins. This is apparently a really bizarre book. And if you guys have read All the Birds in the Sky by Charlie Jane Anders, every time I tell someone that I loved that book, they're like, oh, you need to read The Library at Mount Char. So I saw it on Book Outlet, and I think this is the most expensive one of the books that I bought. I think this one was like $6.49. So still super affordable for a hardcover, really great condition book. But I don't know, and I read the blurb and I still can't figure out what it's about. But it says, a missing god, a library with the secrets of the universe, and a woman too busy to notice her heart slipping away. And then as I'm briefly skimming the blurb again, it capitalizes the word library and father, and they're wondering if their cruel tutor might secretly be God. So definitely sounding like it might be just as strange as All the Birds in the Sky. The next book, kind of the same vibes, except I've had some friends who have read this and they didn't really enjoy it all too much, so thankfully this one was less expensive than the other one. But it's the same type of like weird magical realism type stuff. This is a really gorgeous book. There's like purple lavender foil going on there. I don't know if you guys can see that, but this is called Gold Fame Citrus by Claire Vaye Watkins. I believe I also own one of her short story collections. Don't know too much about it. It's weird magical realism, so if you're into that, you might be into this. I only have a few more books left to show you guys, and this one is Forever Interrupted by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Taylor Jenkins Reid, if you guys don't know, is my favorite contemporary author by far. I think she's amazing. She wrote my favorite book so far of 2017, and that is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I don't know if you heard me talk about it in several of my past videos, but it's absolutely amazing. This is one of her, I guess, more lighthearted contemporaries, and it is called Forever Interrupted. And it's about a girl named Elsie, and she marries a guy named Ben, and they're head over heels in love. But unfortunately, one day Ben is hit by a car on his motorcycle and he dies after the accident. Their romance was a really whirlwind romance. They got married really fast. So after the accident, Elsie goes to the hospital, and then Ben's mom shows up, so Elsie's mother-in-law, and she has no idea who Elsie is. So that's probably not a great situation to be in. The next book I don't know too much about, but this is called Malice. It's by Keigo Higashino. I looked it up on Google, and it apparently is the 4th book in a series, but it is a mystery, and I've read like books in the middle of a series that are mysteries, and I usually don't miss very much, just a little bit of backstory about the detective, so hopefully that is the case here. But this book is apparently about a writer who was going to move to Vancouver one day, but the night before he tries to move, he is found murdered, and then there's something going on in the friend group, and I believe that one of the investigating police officers knows the person, reason. I don't really know, but I really like Japanese crime fiction. So when I saw this, it was pretty cheap. I think it was like $3.50, so I was like, sure. And the last book that I have to show you guys, some people don't like this book, but I really, really like this book. This is In a Dark, Dark Wood by Ruth Ware. I remember buddy reading this with probably like 8 other people, and it was a really cool experience. But this is basically like your classic kind of Agatha Christie inspired kind of novel. There are a bunch of friends that go to a cabin in the woods. There's no reception. There are a bunch of like really different personalities, different jobs going on, and there's literally no reception. You can't contact anyone there. And then one day one of the people is murdered there, and then it's kind of a closed system mystery, so you as a reader believe that it is one of the people who had to be there at the time of the murder. So it was definitely one of the people in the cabin. I really liked it. It definitely was influenced by Agatha Christie, and I think a lot of Ruth Ware's work is influenced by Agatha Christie, which I love. So yeah, I like this one. I would recommend it. So that is it. I have emptied the boxes. They are now all over my floor. Fantastic. Cool. So if you guys have read any of these books, the ones that I haven't read especially, let me know down below. If not, let me know what books you found interesting in this book haul. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will now go cry because my wallet is also empty. Thank you for watching again. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.